In a world increasingly marred by both physical and spiritual challenges, the Virgin Mary's messages, particularly those revealed through Mirjana and Medjugorje, carry profound significance for believers. They serve as both a warning and a beacon of hope, urging us to spiritually prepare for the trials that lie ahead. Full of maternal love and urgent compassion, Mary's call resonates deeply in the hearts of the faithful, reminding us of the power of prayer, the importance of unity, and the boundless protection we receive from God when we rely on His guidance. As a loving mother who never abandons her children, the Virgin Mary speaks to us with a tenderness that reflects her profound concern for humanity. In her messages, she lovingly invites us to deepen our prayer lives, fortify our faith, and unite as a community in the face of growing adversity. She encourages us to return to the basics of our faith: prayer, penance, and conversion. Her words are not meant to frighten us, but to spiritually prepare us for the challenges that will test our resolve. Through prayer, particularly the Rosary, we are called to draw closer to God, trust in His providence, and remain steadfast in our commitment to the faith. The Virgin Mary's message is clear. To navigate the trials ahead, we must be spiritually grounded and prepared. She calls us to seek refuge in prayer, especially the Rosary, and to embrace the sacraments, particularly the Eucharist and confession, as means of fortifying our spirits. By doing so, we are not only strengthening our personal faith, but also creating a collective shield against the forces that seek to separate us from God. In these times, prayer is not just a personal solace, but a communal force that unites the faithful across the globe. Mary urges us to stay close to her heart, for she watches over us with an unwavering maternal care, guiding us through the spiritual battles that are intensifying in our world. Mirjana's revelations in Medjugorje, like those of Fatima, echo the divine warnings that Mary has shared with the world for generations. These messages highlight the urgency of our situation, calling for a renewed commitment to prayer and repentance. Through Mary's intercession, we are reminded of the importance of spiritual preparation, not just as individuals, but as a united body of believers. She forewarned of growing immorality, wars, church persecution, and the rise of atheism, all of which continue to unfold in our time. Her messages are a clarion call to act now, before it is too late, urging us to open our hearts to God and prepare for the spiritual challenges that lie ahead. Mary's messages in Medjugorje emphasize the need for deep spiritual reflection and readiness. She speaks of the impending spiritual darkness that will attempt to engulf the world, and the only defense against it is a life rooted in prayer and repentance. It is through prayer, particularly the daily recitation of the Rosary, that we are shielded from the forces of evil. These practices are not just rituals. They are powerful spiritual weapons that provide divine protection and open the doors to God's grace. Through regular participation in the sacraments, especially the Eucharist, we are nourished and empowered to stand firm in our faith, no matter the external challenges. The key to overcoming the difficulties ahead is found in the strength of our faith and the unity of the Church. The Virgin Mary's message calls us to come together in prayer, to support one another in love, and to remain faithful to God's will, no matter how dark the world may become. Her love for us is evident in every word she speaks, and she promises that, through prayer and spiritual preparation, we will be able to face even the most daunting challenges with hope, courage, and the assurance of God's protection. As we reflect on these divine messages, let us take Mary's words to heart. Let us return to prayer, strengthen our bond with God, and live our lives in the light of His truth. By embracing Mary's call to action, we can find the spiritual fortitude to navigate these turbulent times and emerge stronger in our faith. With the Virgin Mary as our guide and protector, we can face the future with unwavering hope, knowing that God's grace will carry us through. In the spiritual battle we are facing, certain practices are far more than mere rituals. They are powerful tools for divine protection and strength. Among these, the Rosary stands out as an especially potent weapon against the forces of evil. The Virgin Mary urges us to pray the Rosary daily, emphasizing that each prayer offers grace and protection to those who invoke it with faith. By reflecting on the lives of Jesus and Mary, the Rosary draws us closer to God and strengthens our souls, fortifying us against temptation and spiritual attack. Mary reminds us that through this powerful prayer, we can displace the darkness that seeks to overwhelm us and invite God's light into our hearts. The Eucharist is another central element in the spiritual preparation Mary urges us to embrace. This sacred sacrament is not just a symbolic act, but a source of spiritual nourishment and strength. When we partake in the Eucharist, we are spiritually united with Christ, receiving his body and blood as a means of fortifying us to face the obstacles that lie ahead. Mary encourages all believers to participate in the Eucharist regularly, as it is through this divine union that we gain the grace and fortitude to persevere in faith, especially during times of trial. However, in the face of these spiritual challenges, there are specific sins that the Virgin Mary warns us about, which pose a serious threat to our relationship with God. Among the most urgent of these are the sins of lust, greed, and the loss of religious vocations. Mary speaks candidly about how these sins are rampant in the world today, leading many to stray from the narrow path of righteousness. Lust, in particular, is a destructive force, eroding the sanctity of relationships and the purity of the human heart. It is a temptation that seeks to lure us into the false promise of fleeting pleasure, but Mary exhorts us to resist its pull, reminding us that true joy and fulfillment can only be found by living in accordance with God's commandments. Greed is another dangerous sin that Mary warns against. In a world increasingly obsessed with material wealth, she reminds us that material prosperity is transient and cannot bring the peace that comes from a life grounded in faith. We are urged to shift our focus away from the accumulation of possessions and toward the spiritual treasures that await those who follow God's will. True contentment, Mary teaches, lies in helping others, living a life of compassion, and placing our trust in God's providence, not in the fleeting promises of material gain. To help combat these temptations, Mary urges us to call upon Archangel Michael, the great protector against evil. In times of spiritual struggle, Archangel Michael's intercession is a powerful source of strength. By asking for his help, we can fortify our resolve to resist the sins that threaten our spiritual health and commit ourselves to living a holy and virtuous life. Mary understands that many will feel overwhelmed by uncertainty, anxiety, and temptation in the difficult times ahead. Yet, she offers a message of hope. Those who remain steadfast in faith, who cling to her Son and trust in her maternal protection, will be safe. She assures us that we are never alone in our trials. When the weight of the world seems unbearable, Mary reminds us to stay close to her, for she is always watching over us, guiding us, and interceding on our behalf. Our faith, she promises, will be our strength in the face of adversity. Above all, Mary's message stresses the importance of unity. She calls on Christians to unite in prayer, to support each other in love, and to show compassion and generosity, especially in times of hardship. By standing together, we draw strength not only from God but from each other. Our willingness to uplift one another, to offer prayers, and to extend acts of charity will be the source of our collective strength. It is through this unity, in prayer and in action, that we will find the willpower to endure whatever challenges may come. Mary assures us that, by embracing prayer, living in accordance with God's will, and coming together as a community, we will be prepared for whatever lies ahead. The Rosary, the Eucharist, and our commitment to resisting temptation are all essential elements in our spiritual defense. Through these practices, we can fortify our souls, overcome the darkness, and stand firm in our faith. With Mary as our guide and protector, we can face the future with hope and confidence, knowing that her maternal care will always be with us. In times of trial, the Virgin Mary reminds us that prayer is not simply a personal act, but a unifying force that connects believers in their relationship with God and with each other. Mary urges us to pray together as a church, as families, and as communities. When recited collectively, the Rosary becomes a powerful spiritual weapon that safeguards the world and the people who pray it. United in prayer, we form an invisible shield of grace that protects us from the forces of evil and strengthens the bond of faith that holds us together. Through this collective act of devotion, we invite God's protection and guidance into our lives, transforming our prayers into a force that can fend off the darkness around us. However, Mary's call goes beyond prayer. She encourages us to embody the love of the gospel through our actions. By helping the weak, supporting the poor, and showing compassion to those in need, we manifest the love of Christ. Our good deeds are not just acts of charity, they are powerful expressions of our faith. They lift up not only those we serve but also ourselves, creating a ripple effect of spiritual renewal and strengthening the fabric of our communities. In a world that can sometimes feel harsh and divided, acts of kindness become the bridges that unite us in love and faith. As we approach 2024, Mary foretells the trials and tribulations that will come, affecting both the Church and the world. She warns of assaults on the faith, global unrest, and spiritual battles that will challenge the beliefs of many. But rather than bring fear, Mary's message serves as a wake-up call, a call to action. Now is the time to prepare, to fortify our hearts and spirits, so that we can stand firm when the storms hit. Mary urges us to act without delay, to strengthen our spiritual foundations through daily prayer, participation in the Eucharist, and frequent confession. The trials ahead are not to be underestimated. They will test our faith to its core. But Mary reassures us that those who are spiritually prepared will not only endure, but emerge stronger. While the challenges may seem overwhelming, Mary offers us a message of hope. She assures us that, through God's grace, those who are prepared in faith will find the strength to persevere. Her message is one of reassurance. If we hold fast to our faith, pray consistently, and trust in God's protection, we will not be alone in our trials. God's light will always shine, even in the darkest of circumstances. The difficulties we face are not punishments but purifications, opportunities for our faith to be refined and our souls to grow closer to God. The victory of divine love and grace will belong to those who endure and remain faithful. Mary's invitation is one of readiness, hope, and faith. We are living in a time of great spiritual importance, and her urgent call to prepare is a reminder that the challenges ahead are not just tests of endurance, but opportunities for spiritual transformation. Through prayer, the sacraments, and acts of charity, we can strengthen our faith, draw closer to God, and unite as a community of believers. The trials that await us will certainly test us, but Mary assures us that, with God's protection and her maternal intercession, we will emerge victorious. The light of God will guide us through the storm, and we will partake in the victory of His everlasting love. Now is the time to respond to Mary's summons. Through the Rosary, the Eucharist, and our commitment to acts of charity, we can prepare our souls for what lies ahead. Mary promises that if we remain faithful, pray fervently, and support one another, we will triumph over the trials that await us and share in the triumph of God's love. Let us move forward together, as a united body of believers, confident in the power of prayer, the strength of the sacraments, and the guidance of the Virgin Mary. May her maternal care continue to lead us toward the light, now and always. Thank you for joining in this journey of faith. May the strength of our shared belief lift us all as we prepare for what lies ahead.